Good day, everyone, and welcome to our final part of episode 3 of Discussion Points. My name is Bodhi, and you've been joining me on this adventure now for our 6th episode. I am proud to be joined by Tanino, who was the winner of the first Melbourne City Championships that took place on Saturday last week. Welcome, Tanino. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. So we're hopefully not going to keep you too late tonight, but I do have a couple of interesting topics I would like to chat to you about. I would really like to go over the Melbourne metagame, especially with 62 players attending the first event and close to 40 attending the second event as well, the largest of the season. I'd really like to dive into your history as a player too, as I know you personally, of course, but there will be a lot of Australian players and a lot of players out there in general that won't know too much about you as you haven't been playing super competitively for that long. We've got your deck list up too, which we're going to be able to chat about later on, your Night March and Milotic list, and we're going to chat to you about if you have any plans to travel for the season, what you think might be good going into future events, and if you plan on sticking with Night March. So I suppose my first question for you, Tanino, is why Night March Melodic in Melbourne?
That's a good question. Well, basically because in the off season, I think starting from between October and November-ish last year, I saw a couple of videos on YouTube, and then we've been practicing. I'm just pretty much on weekends with friends as well, and then it looks pretty solid for me. So from then, I just kind of thought, all right, I'm going to choose this deck. So pretty much since then, my mind was already set on Night March, but then it's just kind of the list sort of modified bits and pieces here and there, I think. So it kind of grew to, in the end, Night March Melodic was, in my opinion, was the most consistent one. To verse a lot of the other decks, and yeah, that was the reason why for choosing Night March.
And going into the event, did you expect to see a lot of decks that Night March had a very favourable matchup against? Things like a Vettel have a very interesting Night March matchup, because if they do end up playing maybe 3, maybe even 4 baby Vettels, it does become quite a difficult matchup for you because they can trade prices with you very efficiently. Is there a deck in particular that you thought might be a very strong matchup for you in the day?
Yeah, going to the event, I was very cautious of versing the volatile decks, but the first three round I versed 3 anti decks in a row, and in the 4th round I was like, what if I verse something else in the tournament? And it's like my first sort of tournament in the whole year, so like, am I gonna know what to do in that event if that happens? But turns out round 5 I versed Eveltal. I think it was a very close match. So it was a three game. So I won game 2 and 3. I lost game 1. But it is a very very close match because you can trade price, but then in the end, if they don't block I think the Milotic for the DCs and the other stuff to keep the decks going. I think that as long as I take the first prize, I think that's a very important one to take note as well. Like just take the first prize and then make sure you don't bench a lot of shamans against them. That's from my coach, Michael Khan. I think I just want to give a shout out to Michael Khan. I learned a lot from him in the last 3 months. I think it's just his advice is always don't be bad. Like if I make a misplay, I think it's say, "Oh, don't be bad, Tony." Yeah.
I don't think there is a better person in the whole of Australia that you could have as a coach. Michael Khan, an incredibly strong player.
He's very competitive as well, so it's very good to have him to just coach me in terms of preparing for events and stuff.
Now, what I want to ask you about is your history as a player. We were chatting before we started this evening, and we have known each other for a couple of years now, but it has come to my attention that this is your first major win at a tournament. Is that correct?
That's correct. So in the last couple of seasons, I think I've just been playing on and off. I've played in, I think, 2013 Nats. Just made the top 32, but then afterwards, just kind of like lay low for a bit, just play a few tournaments here and there, but not really been playing competitively. But then just in the group in the last couple of months, I think Sean, Michael, Kish, we just kind of like, all right, this is gonna be the year that we're gonna go all to Worlds. So let's start practicing together. Just get really serious and just go for it.
Fantastic. And at this city's event, it is absolutely a fantastic achievement to win in Melbourne. For a start, a lot of us players that live out of state of Melbourne always dread traveling to Melbourne at times during the season. It's a very difficult place to travel to and hope to take points away from. Is there a specific strategy that you could give when it comes to playing at events to people?
Well, I guess I thought about it the other day. I think it's there's 3 factors that I think it could factor in that could benefit you into going to top 8 at least. And those are like the deck choice, which also ties back into the whole sort of meta game again. So what other people's decks are playing in that tournament. If you're choosing the deck that's favorable, then obviously you're gonna go through top 8. But if not, then it'll be like the Werribee, where there's more people playing Toad, and I verse them in 3 rounds in a row, so I get crushed. Toad bats in a row, so that's one. The second one is the matchup. I guess if you're playing against a favorable deck, then you're obviously going to go through. But then if you get matched up to decks that are either equal or favorable, then you're going to go through. But then it comes down to the matchups again. If they pair you up with unfavorable decks, then there's nothing you can do. And then the final one is the misplays, so the less misplays. So you just have to really think, is this the better play than that? And just going back to the training notes, I guess. What are the scenarios that you just play in your head, play it out until the end, and if that's favorable to you, then do it. But that's the 3 that I think that could possibly factor into the going to top 8 or do well in tournaments.
We really appreciate full answers on this show, and I want to thank you for really explaining to our audience the 3 things that someone who has come away with a win from an event describes as the most important things in an event setting and in a tournament setting. I want to bring up now the information and top 8 from the Geelong City Championships, the event that you placed first at. And 2nd through 8th, you see 2 more Night March variants, a Manectric variant, 2 Crobat variants, and a Vettel, an Entei, and a Gardevoir. So my first question for you, based on the information that we have from the event now and going into the event, is this the sort of decks you thought you'd be playing against?
I was definitely expecting a lot of Manectric variants, so Manectric bats, Manectric, Mega Manectric, and Gardevoir I would consider Gardevoir deck as one of the Axis decks that would be quite popular. So let's say similar to Mega Mewtwo, where they can a lot of EXs. So I was hoping for that matchups. To get those matchups in the top 6 and in the 6 rounds, but then in the top 8, I was definitely, before going to top 8, I was expecting to verse at least 1 Toad Bats or some form of Toad, but I was lucky to dodge that bullet and then let the Mega Mewtwo take them down. But definitely, these would be a good representative of like the whole, in my opinion, I think the next sort of tournaments, a good indicator of what decks we can expect. But then again, the new set's coming out, so that may change again.
Talking about the new set, Have you had much of a chance to look at the Breakpoint set? I have asked all of my guests if they've had a chance to look at it. Unfortunately, not too many of them have yet. Is it something that you've been looking at quite closely?
Yeah, I'm in the group and just like what's the we can actually implement. In saying that, I think this is quite early. But we can also say that there are some trainers there that really benefit a Night March deck. Um, but that would be the same for a Toad deck. So in that case, I wouldn't know what to do. But in to answer your question, yes, we've been looking the new set quite closely last couple of months because actually my friend Sean he's in Japan, so he's been playing the new set quite often. So he's been messaging us back in the group and just saying updating what deck he's playing. So we've kind of like getting updates from him, just what sort of cards that could fit into the decks that we can play in the whole season.
I really would like to ask you if you have a favorite card from the new set. Is there anything that's really jumped out at you?
I would say Time Puzzle.
I've got that answer a lot, actually. Yeah.
General consensus for a lot of people. Maybe the second one after that is I forgot the name, but it's the card that allows you to get grass Pokemon back to your hand or to your deck.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like the grass version of Sacred Ash.
Yeah, I think that could be beneficial for grass Pokemon.
I really like that they reprinted Max Potion. As an old school player of Max Potion decks, I really do like Max Potion.
That'll actually give even more deck options in the next sort of format after just before after the Melbourne city. So that's the Aromatist. I think the deck will be to look at for.
I completely agree. What I would like to do now is chat to you about your Night March melodic list. I've got the list up on screen now, unfortunately you can't see it. There are a couple of cards that I am really interested in chatting to you about. Now, the deck looks very similar to Kale's. Of course, I believe that Kale, who was the winner of the Perth City Championships, who I interviewed, used your list as inspiration, which I think that should be very flattering. Of course.
How to get my list?
Well, I think the common list that was running around, they do look quite similar from what I can tell. There are a couple of cards I would like to chat to you about, and that's the inclusion of Town Map. I asked Kale about this last night. What is your opinion on Town Map, and why did it make the cut in your deck instead of any other card?
Yep. I was thinking of cutting Town Map for maybe another supporter that could boost the consistency of the deck. But in a lot of the scenarios that we've played, there's always at least one or two Night Marches prize, and that could be crucial to the game in late games. So let's say after you have 9 Night Marches in your discard pile, and you have your 10th one, but then you have 2 in prize, and you don't know which one, and you need to take at least one of them to put on your bench so you can, after your active, get knocked out, and then you can just switch it back with the new one that you just got from prize. So that sort of scenarios happen quite often in practice, so that's why it made the cut instead of the other supporters or any cards that boost the consistency of the deck.
Did you find a particular use for Starling Megaphone during the event? I spoke quite for many minutes, actually, to my 3 guests from the Canberra City Championships about the inclusion of Starling Megaphone and how important I thought that it might be in the coming format. Did you feel that it was a strong inclusion to your deck, or did you find that you weren't using it as often as you had hoped?
I guess I used it. I didn't use it as often as I would have expected, because I was expecting people playing Focus Sash from Lucario Bats, or just to get the Spirit Links out before they evolve, or Definitely wasn't expecting a lot of entails, but that definitely helped those three matchups there. Um, so I guess I kind of used it in a way that I didn't expect to use it. So I was expecting a whole different matchups, but then um, it kind of helped favorably against the anti decks because when I play those decks, let's say the Mega Mewtwo's or the EX Pokemon EX, the Mega EXs, they won't actually use the EXs. They just use the babies to kill off the Night Marches. They just discard those cards and then use the other cards. So I did use it, but I didn't use it as I thought it would be.
And my final question to you is the inclusion of teammates. And it's not a card that everybody plays, but it is certainly a card that is very powerful when it works out on the turn that you get to play it. And I had my first experience with teammates in about 5 months this evening. I played my first hand of Pokemon in about 6 or 7 months, and completely had forgotten about teammates. And it was a very strong card, and a card that I have a lot of respect for in this current format. Did you find that it was extremely helpful in all of your matchups?
Definitely, because in some scenarios, I think if you put in a percentage, I think 20% or 10 to 15%, it can be a situational sort of advantage to you. But the other 80% is beneficial for you. So that for me is a very good percentage for me to use the card in the deck because you'll always know that your Night March is going to get knocked out in second turn. So you always can get that 2 cards that you need just to attack next turn. Let's say you just need DC or another Milotic in the bench or a Phoebus, or the most often one that I need was the Dimension Valley. So that was really, really helpful, I think.
Did you struggle playing no basic energy into a format where the basic Jirachi is quite popular?
Is that the promo Jirachi?
Yes, the promo that discards a special energy and means that you can't deal damage the next turn.
Yep. It's yes and no about it because I found that if when they do attack, um, I get damage, get one discarded, and if as long as they don't use Hex Maniac in the next turn, and then I just pass that turn that they discard. So almost likely, my my active Pokemon will get knocked out in the next turn, and I can just bring out another Night March, and then deal with it from there. Maybe I can Lysander the Jirachi that way, but I find that the people that actually play Jirachi, they played it half, so they actually still after they use the attack, and then they discard the energy. Next turn, they always bring up their main attackers, and then I can kill that off or Lysander the Shamans to get the last 2 prizes. That's what I found what was happening in the cities.
Did you have a specific matchup in mind when you decided to play as?
Not specific matchups for ads because I find that a lot of times I get stuck with Shamans up front, and if I can't find any switches or I have one Shamans on bench and I have to get it up so it doesn't get last-handed out by Yveltal, because that's the matchup that I find before the tournament was going to be the most difficult one. So if I do bench 1 or 2, the less Shamans on my bench would be better for me to lose less 2 prizes from them.
That is about all the questions I have for the deck. I thank you. You are the first person on our show who was comfortable showing the deck list, and I really do appreciate that. It's great to get a full insight into the whole 60 cards of someone's deck and to be able to really dig deep and investigate every single tech card choice that you can squeeze into a deck list. I only have 1 or 2 more questions for you now. We have a break this weekend, of course, for pre-releases, but next week we do have 3 events. a lot of my guests so far have predicted that Night March will remain the most popular deck in the format and will continue to be very strong going forward, even into the next set. Do you agree with that sentiment, or is there a deck out there that you think that might have a chance to overthrow it in the coming weeks and the coming City Championships?
I guess we kind of have to see what happens in the next couple of cities, but it's purely because of toad bats. If they're still flying around, a lot of them, then Night March would have a chance to actually make it through. Maybe if they do make it through, then it means that they didn't verse a lot of them in the Swiss rounds. But definitely, I think Night March is still, for me, is still to go. But we've been testing with other decks as well, so I'm sort of starting to move away from Night March, but because just purely because the fact that Toad is out there, so I'm not gonna verse that matchup again.
Is there a deck in the format that you have had a chance to test, or maybe you haven't yet, that you're really excited to play and that you really enjoy playing?
Definitely a fairy deck. So with the return of Max Potion, I think that I'm kind of really excited to see how that actually plays out in the current format.
Absolutely. And finally, I just want to give you an opportunity. I know you gave a little shout out to the guys that you test with and the guys that you play with, but I want to give you a chance to give any final shout outs that you may have missed, or if you'd like to shout out the same guys again, go ahead before we wrap up.
Oh yeah, definitely again to the guru, the master, MK, Michael Khan, and also Kish. I think he, if it wasn't for him, because he stayed at my place for the weekend that night. If it wasn't for him, we would have struggled going back because he drove that day. So it was, and he supported the whole day, the whole night as well. Because I made a misplay in the finals of miscounting the 20 damage of resistance, and I looked at him like, oh, that cost me the game. But he just keep focused, and then keep focused, and that really helped me a lot. But yeah, so Kish and Michael Khan. So that's just 2 shout outs there.
I want to thank you again for coming to join me this evening. It is really great that I get to chat to a player that I've known for so long, and a player that is now hopefully going to continue this run of success into the future. And I really do look forward to hopefully having to interview you again when you win a regionals or something like that in a couple months' time.
Hopefully. As well.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for that, guys. This has been Discussion Points. I've been Brady, and this was my guest, Tanino. Thank you very much. We'll chat to you soon.